Hello, so this is video 2 out of 2 on the dry suits, or my dry suit journey. The last video I gave you a quick overview of the dry suit and the fleece that I've decided to buy. This video I'm going to give you the thought process that went behind it, and the reason I'm doing this is, well, number one is the way I do things on the channel, giving you that thought process, but number two, it was a real journey, actually, to get the right one and eventually pull the trigger on a dry suit. So I thought I'd share what I know. Before I go on, what I would say is that I bought my dry suit from Marine Superstore. They were really great at exchanging things. I did have to change the suit, so I originally went for the L. Now, Typhoon do, and we'll come on to that in sizing, but Typhoon do lots of really cool sizes. But I needed an MB dry suit, but I needed the LB fleece. The MB fleece, I literally couldn't get the thighs on in the fleece. But the L suit was too long and too tight, so they do the MB, which is shorter but kind of fatter, if I can say that. But I do have a pretty large chest, so I'm just under 6 foot now, about 5'11", 5'11 and a half. I am 15 and a half stone, and I have a 44-inch chest, and I have approximately 36-inch waist, roughly, should be a little bit less. And the MB Typhoon suit fitted me, but I did need the LB fleece underneath. Now, you can get the different size fleece. They will exchange the fleece only or the dry suit only. So it did, even when I knew what I was going to do, it did take a few sort of send backs and returns to do that. So you do have to account for that in the cost. I use my kind of company's DHL, so it's not so expensive for us to send it back, but you do have to account for that. It can take a while. So if you can visit a store and try a few on, that would really have been beneficial. Anyway, coming on to my thought process. So the first thing up here is Gore-Tex. I originally thought that I'd just get a Gore-Tex dry suit. That's what you do, buy Gore-Tex. I'm a big fan of Gore-Tex. I've got a few this is proper brand name Gore-Tex things, my boots. I've had Gore-Tex before. I love it. It's really good. I choose Gore-Tex modern stuff over the old stuff any day of the week. Just me, just the way I like to do things. But Gore-Tex dry suits are hellishly expensive. There's obviously a lot of Gore-Tex in them, and I couldn't afford one. They're, I think the cheapest one I could find was basically £1,000. So I very quickly realised that I couldn't afford a Gore-Tex dry suit. But fortunately, lots of manufacturers do their own version of Gore-Tex nowadays. So I found, from looking at loads of forum posts and loads of reviews, that fake Gore-Tex or replica Gore-Tex that a lot of the brands do, they get very close. They seem to have got the waterproofing sorted, but so I found that doing the non-Gore-Tex branded stuff, so own brand Gore-Tex, was as good as Gore-Tex with waterproofing, but not as good when it came to sweating and getting your sweat out of the suit. And I found that I read loads of forum articles over it, and people who've had loads of suits to compare them. But it's close, and a lot of people also said that, they only really noticed it if it was in the summer and they were exercising. Now, when you're on a dinghy, you're not really moving around a lot. So, and also I'm hoping to wear this suit in the colder months, not the warmer ones. So, so I think we're going to be okay. Relief zip. That was the other big thing for me. I need a relief zip. I am a gentleman of a certain age, but I also have to drink a lot of water for certain conditions I have. and it means I have to have a wee. And I cannot, I mean, the thought of wearing a dry suit for 2 hours, let alone 4 or 6 or 8 hours, and not being able to have a wee, I mean, it just frightens. So, like, it's enough to stop me sailing, full stop. So, you know, I remember when I did my powerboat level 2 course, we were on the boat for 5 hours, I think, before we stopped for a break. And it just gave me anxiety that I couldn't have a wee. I didn't have any coffee that day. I didn't drink any water. So I'd have a shouting chance and I was still bursting, and it's just horrible. So I need a relief zip. You can have them retrofitted, but, you know, if you can get them in your suit to begin with, then that's good. And ladies, they're also useful for you. I've read countless articles on how ladies use those little shiwis, and you can poke that out the zip just like the men, and have a wee. And you know, I think it's important. There's no point being on your dinghy, you know, bursting for a wee when, you know, it just ruins it, doesn't it? So relief zip. So I had to choose one with a relief zip, and that does reduce the options for you. It also takes out quite a few of the cheaper suits, the Atacama ones, Crusader ones, you know. The main zip as well. So the other thing I didn't realise was the main zip, the classic one across the shoulder, which many people say is still the best kind of place for the zip. It is out the way, you don't feel it. They're the only ones I've really ever worn. But there are like ones that now zip across the front of you. Now some are more sort of across the chest, some are right down to the waist. None of those really reached the zip, the relief area. So, you know, you'd still have to take your head out the hood. So I did think in the end that having the zip across the front, there was no real need for it, unless you couldn't do the one up behind you. The answer to that is you can do them up behind you. I've actually got quite a bad shoulder. I remember having physio for it. I've just strained it. It's rugby injuries that, you know, it recurs for me. So it is important for me. I've got, you know, this arm I'm fine. This one I'm a little bit struggling at the moment, but I can still get mine on with the zipper on the shoulder. No problem at all. So, you know, you don't have to worry about that. The other big thing was cuffs, collar and feet. So the big thing about how you seal the water. So the Gore-Tex or the fabric itself is waterproof. It's not going to leak. But there are holes in your arms and your head, and also your socks you have to account for, where water can get in. And the way they stop that classically is with latex cuffs that just grip you quite nicely and no water's going to get in. And the socks tend to be sewn in and made out of latex or the same fabric as the suit. It seems to be the modern thing now. So I went for a latex suit with latex collar and cuffs. You can get neoprene ones, and apparently they are very good, but the neoprene ones can leak. I'm told it's not much, but they do leak. The neoprene ones are more comfy to wear all day, but I guess that's what it is, isn't it? Tighter fit doesn't leak, not so tight fit, maybe it leaks. Now, I'm I guess I'm more on the larger side of people, so I've got a bigger neck, so maybe the neoprene would have worked for me, but I just didn't want, on my first suit, I didn't want to get something that just didn't work. The latex ones, you can be more uncomfortable, but I have worn a suit for 2 days and I was fine with it. The other thing I'll be careful with latex is some people can be allergic to it, so check that before you buy a latex suit. The only other issue with latex is you have to be very careful with it. Not only do you have to be really careful not to split it or damage it when you're getting them on your suit on and off, you also have to be mindful of managing it. You have to give it some like little silicone waxing and stuff. It takes 5 minutes. You do it now and again, but you need to sort of almost moisturize the latex to keep it supple and fresh. Whether you've got neoprene or latex, you do have to replace them now and again, but all the suit manufacturers have that service, and it's not that expensive, so you know, that's okay. Now, I'm not going to be wearing my suit that often, so for me it's about keeping that latex supple, maybe more so than splitting it all the while. But when you're on a cruising trip, you have got to be mindful of where the suit's going to be stowed. You know, you've got to be careful. You can't just like take it off and chuck it on the floor, you know. Now, my socks are made out of the material of the suit, which is good, but does make them a bit uncomfortable and a little bit bulky. So I was mindful. My sailing boots are, if anything, they fit, but they're a little bit small. They're a little bit big when they're on my feet without socks or anything. So what I might do with the shoes, they are due for a bit of a renewal. My sailing neoprene shoes. I might get a size bigger and then buy some neoprene socks to wear when I'm not using the suit. And you can do that, I guess. The brand. So, there are good brands out there and there are not so good brands out there. I'm not here to bash any brands, so I'm not going to do that. But what I will tell you is, I did see quite a lot of good press about Cockatoo. Got to be careful how you say that one. And Typhoon, which was ultimately the brand I chose. The Crusaders got a lot of good press. Cheaper stuff tends to get good press. Gill suits seem to get good press. I like Gill kit, but Gill don't make a suit that would have suited me. They didn't make any with relief zips, so they got, you know, they got sort of cut out for those reasons. For me, the brands that were really the target brands in the end were Palm, Cockatoo, and Typhoon. Now, Typhoon especially came out tops on support and the fact they're UK based. So, you know, any problems, you know, it's a UK phone call, a UK postal, quick, fast. Their support, their replacement services, you know, for doing all bits of repairs. Their warranty's 3 years as well. So, you know, I couldn't argue with that. The Cockatoo ones seem to have good support, but I couldn't quite work out how it worked in the UK. Palm, okay, didn't get such good ratings from a lot of people. Some people did, but more people, to me, when I was reading, sort of didn't want to go for the Palm. I felt Palm was sort of in the middle and maybe represented too much of the worst of both brands rather than the best. The other thing about Palm and Cockatoo were they were very colourful suits. I really like the Cockatoo, you know, the luminous orange one, but it would get dirty very quickly, especially the light grey trousers, whereas the Typhoon suit, it's got that lovely dark teal and just enough orange to be visible in the water, but not crazy. So, you know, there was that as well. The type of suit as well. So you can get dinghy suits, you can get canoeing all-round suits, which is what I went for, and you can get, you know, you can get all kinds of suits. The dinghy suits I found were too thin, didn't have relief support, zips in the wrong place, they were just lacking a little bit. To me, I didn't check this for real, but a lot of the suits didn't have, you know, mid-sizes either, and they looked to me to be probably a bit slim-fitting. So, you know, so I went for an all-round kayaking suit. They seem really robust. They've got loads of extra material and the bum and the knees and the elbows. I think, you know, very me. I'm a bit ham-fisted, you know, and I think as well, I want to go canoeing, and I want, you know, I think dinghy sailing as well can be quite aggressive on clothing. So for me, I ended up going for that all-round suit. Those all-round suits seem to be the ones that had the relief zips as well. So that's the other thing, the type of suit you go for. Some have got loads of pockets in as well. Would have been nice to have a few pockets on my suit, but I think that was probably one of the compromises I had to make. Oh, I've mentioned colour already. So, yeah, some suits, as much as I love those Cockatoo ones, I just think the light grey would get very dirty, and yeah, those crazy colours, they were like bright blue or bright orange. The palm ones were kind of all red or all blue, bright blue. So yeah, you know, I'm a bit understated. I like my dark greys and blacks, if I don't even notice that. So, you know, the Typhoon suits were much more understated. Okay, it's not a big thing, is it, really? You know, you want the suit to work and be safe, but it was something that, you know, did ultimately add to the decision. Price was obviously a good one. So I did find that the sort of suit I was looking for was around the 500, but the Palm and the Cockatoo were about 600 without a fleece underneath. The Typhoon one was 500. It was actually a little bit under that. And it had a fleece come with that as well. And the fleece is worth about 50, 60 pounds, I think, on its own. So the price did play its part. And yeah, that did sort of push the Typhoon to the forefront again a little bit more. Then we come on to the last thing, which was sizing. And this is where I thought the Typhoon suits really won out. The Typhoon, you can get in, you know, small, medium, large. I think there's an extra small and a, you know, XXLs and whatnot. I knew I was sort of medium or large. Now they do an MB, which is medium but with a bigger body. They do an M, which is the straight medium, and then they do an ML, I think it is, or M something. So they do 3 sizes. One is for if you're a bit thin and taller, so you're a medium but you're a bit taller. One is if you're medium but a little bit bigger, more, you know, people with a few more years behind them. I found that the L in the dry suit was too long, so I went for the M, but I needed the MB, so I needed a little bit more in the, I think it gives you a little bit more in the legs, in the thighs as well. So I'm an ex-rugby player, but I'm also a cyclist. I cycle all you know, 3 or 4 times a week, and I actually love sprinting, so my thighs are probably a little bit above average, and I'm always struggling to get into jeans and stuff because of my thighs. And rugby players have big bums as well, and you know, and now as you get older you get slightly bigger tummies as well. So I'm sort of short and stout really in terms of the L. So it was nice to be able to find the size that really fit. And for me, that MB dry suit's perfect. You know, it's slightly baggy when it's on with nothing underneath, and it's perfect. It's still got a little bit of give in it when you've got the fleece underneath, and it's got a little bit more. So I think I could probably get like my little heated jacket under there without too much fuss as well. So yeah, it was a perfect fit, but I did need the different sizes I mentioned in the fleece. So anyway, there we go. So I wanted to try and keep this as short as I can, but I've seen the time is nearly 20 minutes. So I'm going to end it there. I'd love anyone else who's got a dry suit or whatever you've chosen, comment, because I found my whole journey of clothing such a journey, and you know, you end up seemingly, I've bought everything now, every option. But even then, if you've got every option, dry suit, immersion suit, wetsuit, salopettes and top, you know, which one do you take with you and when, you know? So for me, the dry suit is probably where the story ends for me, because I now know I can keep warm when I'm dry, which a wetsuit doesn't do. It's got enough convenience for me to wear it all day, which a wetsuit doesn't do. But the immersion suit is very good at that. But the immersion suit is good at keeping you warm, but you sweat inside it. You really do. Now, they could make Gore-Tex immersion suits, they probably do, but I don't know with all the neoprene inside whether that would you'd still sweat. But also, they'd just become really expensive then. So I think the immersion suit being under £200 gives me an option. The other issue with the immersion suit is they could be difficult to manoeuvre and swim in the water due to all that added buoyancy. So I think the wetsuit for me is no, I'm not going to wear that unless I'm on a small dinghy. getting soaking wet all the while in the water. The immersion suit I think would be brilliant if I'm on a motorboat with other people. If I fall in, I'm literally floating and waiting to be picked up. And I think that would work brilliantly, and I'd probably wear that over the dry suit in many situations. It's also very good when you come off the lake and on dry land. It's lovely and warm, you know, so it is good. But the dry suit is what... Oh, and the salopettes and the waterproof top or coat. Whilst that's brilliant while you're sat in the boat, and you can under warmth that as well, under layer it as well. And I have worn it on my first sea trip, and it was brilliant, keeps you dry. If it rains, you're dry. But if you fall into the water, you've got a problem, because that is going to give you zero protection against cold water once you're immersed in it. And you could get cold shock too. So the dry suit to me seems like the only one that's really going to work for someone who's got a dinghy that is not intending on falling in, but needs to be warm both in and out of the water. So I've got high hopes for it, and that's why ultimately I think I've gone to buy it. Last point I will make. If I were right at the beginning again and I had to buy one thing, well, if money, you know, what would I buy? Money, no object, it would be the dry suit. Money, an object, then I would try and get a cheap dry suit, I think over a wetsuit. Wetsuits for me, they're just so hard to put on. They're even harder to get off. You're wet. They're not something you want to wear all day. There's something you can't really wear when you're dinghy cruising. So, you know, and the immersion suit, again, I think that would be parked for later. But the dry suit for me would be the one that really does it. Only thing you need is a waterproof hat for the rain and you'd be fine. So there we go. Hopefully that helps someone. But that's my thought process going through buying a dry suit, and also a little bit about my journey with clothing generally. Anyone wants to put anything in the comments, please do. I'd love to hear what you did, what your journey was, anything I've forgotten about. We can discuss it in the comments. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.